Behind me stands 20 feet of pure Christmas joy. Let's get out of the weeds. So I'd like to thank you guys for coming back to yet another video. Now, last year I did my 20-foot Christmas tree. It's the first time I ever tried putting it up. I was new to YouTube, still figuring out how to make videos. So what I thought would be a great idea is to kind of do a 20-foot Christmas tree refresh video. Now, I'm not going to hammer out everything step by step like I did in the previous video. It's going to follow a lot of the same steps with a couple of slight differences that I think actually make putting this up easier, in the main one being the base. Now, last year, if you followed along with kind of my journey with this tree, you'd know that I started with an umbrella base, put it in there, put sandbags all around. Well, what ended up happening a few days later, we got a lot of wind, and my wife calls me while I'm at work, and our tree has fallen to the ground. My hopes and dreams were crushed. I was so proud of this thing. Well, here I go to find out that the umbrella stand was rusted out, and so I don't think it was going to hold either way, whether we got a lot of wind or not. So I had to come up with a method that was going to be fall proof, not going to fall. This thing was going to stay up in a hurricane, even though we don't get hurricanes here in Indiana. But anyway, I ended up taking a larger black pipe and pounding it into the ground with a mallet as far as I could. Then what we ended up doing, me and another guy ended up lifting it up and sitting it down in, and that thing held great. There were no problems at all. The issue was that it was so hard to remove from the ground come the spring, so it wasn't a viable option for me to continue to try to do year after year. So this year I did some research, and I ended up finding something that makes this much easier to do. So now this is not going to be step by step from the beginning. So if you want to do a 20-foot light tree and you want to start from scratch to know every single thing you want to get, I will put a materials list in the description. And you can also reference my previous video that I made last year showing you step by step of me drilling all the holes, putting everything together. And so look at that one first and then reference it with this one to see some of the tips and tricks that you can use to make putting up this beautiful tree even easier. And so I wanted to do something a little less intrusive this year. And so what I ended up finding is one of these ground screws. So you can see, I think this is 22 inches long ground screw. And so it has the hole here. I'll put a piece of rebar that came with it. I'll put it through, and I'll screw it into the ground, getting it down to the ground, anchoring it in, and then planning on sliding the pole down in here. So my hope is that this will hold up really well, and this would be kind of an easy way to put something in the ground, get it out of the ground, and not be a huge mess on my yard. So let's see if we can get it into the ground. Rebar just pushes through, and you can just, it gives you handles to put it down into the ground. So now, as far as how sturdy it feels really good. I mean, just almost to me as good as what just pounding the black pipe into the ground felt last year. So I don't think this is going anywhere. Okay, so behind me I have my tree sitting down here. So what I'm going to be doing is getting ready to string the lights, get everything attached. Now, this isn't going to be the full in-depth video. This is just kind of going to be an updated version for 2022, some of the things that I'm doing different, and just show you guys a couple more things up close. But in general, this is the whole pole put together. So I'm still using the black pipe. So I still have my round wooden piece there attached the same way, and then I still have the top part where the stars are going to attach. Another thing you want to make sure that you're doing is, since we're pulling this tight, instead of just connecting the two ends like that, what you want to do is wrap them around each other and then connect them. Because what that's going to do then is, if like any wind or anything's pulling them, it's not pulled tight to unplug them. Because this, especially this section here, they're going to be sitting up at like 18 feet high, so it's going to be hard for me to get up to if they came unplugged. And so do that just so you don't run into anything. The other thing I'm kind of doing right now as I'm doing this is kind of running my final light check, making sure and don't have any big sections that are blown out or anything like that, and make sure everything is good. So far so good. Just stringing my lights up one at a time, making sure everything's good to go before we set everything up. Another helpful hint with this is when you're stringing them down there, make sure you go past the end of the pole, because the lights are going to be going out they're not going straight up and down from the pole, they're going to go out to kind of make it a Christmas tree shape. So you need a little bit of extra room on the end. So when you're stringing your lights out, when you go to the end, give yourself a little bit of extra room. If you follow the guidelines for how much lights you need, you're going to have plenty extra. And so what's going to happen is with those extras, they'll make kind of the base around. You'll see with the PVC, they'll make the base around. So you're fine to have a little bit extra. I'd rather be safe than sorry than string all these lights up here and then you can't even attach it to the ground because you didn't make it long enough. So make sure you do that. Now the star, if you see in the back here, it's connected by a couple of little kind of like hook things on the top and on the bottom. The issue is I don't just trust that. The star's in two pieces, so if those are undone, the star's just in half. So it's easy to fold, but if something would happen and those would come undone, the star could just fall apart or whatever while it's way up there. It's not going to I'm not going to have easy access to get to it. So if you get the same star or star similar to it, make sure you have your star connected together good. I'm going to be using zip ties all the way down to attach the two halves just to give it extra stability, because once it's up there, there's no way I'm getting it until I take this thing down after Christmas. Okay, so now here we are. You can see if you look real close, I got the zip ties all up the entire star just to make it more sturdy. So now here we are at the top of the Christmas tree. So what we're going to do is we got to attach now this star to our little pole here. And so I'm going to do the same thing I kind of did to hold the star together. I'm going to zip tie this thing real tight to make sure that this star doesn't go anywhere. Because if this thing falls from 20 feet up, we're going to have some serious problems. This star, see, the thing is with the star is it can kind of rotate around this pole. So what I like to also do, so now it's attached to the pole really good, but the star, you can see the star still wiggles back and forth in the wind. So what I like to do is double use one of the holes that I used for attaching my lights and attach the star on each corner there, holding it in place so it won't allow the star to spin. So you can see there too, right here, I got the edges of the stars. So now look, when the star moves, the whole thing's got to move. So that star isn't going anywhere. All my lights are looking good. Everything's lit up. I got my base ready back there. And so the next thing is to have a couple people with me, and we're gonna load it up, get that thing dropped down in that hole, and get it, see if we can get this thing attached. Then the last thing to do is going to be just making the PVC base around that. And then attaching everything, zip tying it to the base, and have myself a 20-foot Christmas tree. So you can see here, the pole is inside of here, but what this came with is it kind of came with like these plastic sleeves, and so it can get fitted to whatever size pole you use. And so it's fitted pretty good to that, and then it has this little thing that screws in there to help hold it tight so the pole's not wobbling around as much. What I'm doing here now with these PVC pieces, this is 1/2-inch PVC, and so I'm going and I have 5-foot pieces and I'm kind of bending them around, making a circle all the way around. Then after I make the circle, I just attach my lights by using zip ties, and that will give you kind of the tree effect, because right now everything's just kind of hanging down. And so I'm going to do that, and then we're getting towards the end. going to be getting attached to this PVC with the zip ties. And so as I do that, then what I have left, I can kind of make the base. So I can take this extra, wrap it around the base of it so the base is also lit. And so that way I'm not too short. So that's why when I talked about when you're stringing your lights up, to make sure you go a little bit longer than what the pole is, just to give you a little bit extra down here, because you don't want these real tight. And so when I'm zip tying them, I'm not pulling them, yanking them real tight, because I don't want to put too much stress on the actual light cord. I'm letting them be a little bit looser so they can sway a little bit into the wind and not have a problem with some of my lights getting damaged if we get it really windy. Let them give a little bit. Don't have everything just as tight as you possibly can to stress on the lights. Now keep in mind, another thing that you can do is, since they're on zip ties, I'm not going crazy tight on them yet, because this way, once I get them all zip tied, I can then slide them back and forth around. I can look at my tree, slide them back and forth, get them lined up how I want to, and to get the perfect look for your tree. So don't go too tight on the zip ties initially, just because you want to be able to make some adjustments at the end as you're kind of cleaning everything else up. And so you can see here, I have all this left over at the end, and this is going to be to wrap the base at the very end. I'm going to leave it free for now, and I'm going to just continue to work my way around the tree, getting everything zip tied, and then I'm going to get everything set up in position and then lock it all down tight, and we'll be done with our tree. So here is my tree. Now you can see, this is why I said don't do them too tight. Just because now I have everything. Look at this huge gap right there. And then look, you come over here and look how close they are all together. So you want to make sure that you have the adequate spacing between each of them to help give that tree a nice, good, uniform look. Right now, if I lit this thing up at night, you would have some big gaps in the mix here. So what I'm going to do now is just slide some of my zip ties around to try to get it a nice uniform spacing all the way around. So now the last thing to keep in mind as I walk up here to the tree is your star. The plug-in for your star is really important. Chances are you're not going to have the same star I do. Pay attention, because your cord is going to be up there. If you have a real tiny cord on whatever star you're using, it might not hang down far enough. On mine, the cord is really long, so it's hanging down really low. So I can easily get an extension cord up here, and what I'll do is I'll just zip tie the cord to the pole so it's not just moving around in the wind. But if you get a star that has a short cord, you could get everything put up and your star's cord's only hanging down a couple of feet and you have no way to get up to it. So make sure you pay attention to that. I know it's a small detail, but very important if you do all this work and you have an unlit star at the top that nobody can see. So now my overall thoughts with kind of doing this for a second year now, I definitely like the idea of using the ground screw instead of using an umbrella stand or just pounding black pipe into the ground, which both I did both methods last year after the umbrella stand was rusted out and snapped. So I definitely like the idea of the ground screw. It's really solid in there. I mean, it literally screws in the ground really deep. The one I got is 22 inches, so it's way down in there. And this thing doesn't feel like it's going anywhere. I mean, it feels just as sturdy, if not sturdier, than the methods I used last year. So there it is. And I'll see you guys next time when we get out of the weeds.